Hi, this is Dr. Georgia. I hope you find today's message a blessing in your life. We want to make sure that we continue to provide these video messages for you when you can't come to church, or for those of you who live in a different state, or we noticed recently we have a lot of people in even different countries who are tuning in. So if that is you and you can donate to us, we invite you to hit that donate button just below the message here. So thanks so much.
Let's prepare ourselves. If you put your hand over your eyes, I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today.
I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today.
And over your ears, I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today.
I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today.
And now over your heart, and just extend out your arms. I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today.
I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today.
The spiritual truth that I'm working with is that principle is never bound by precedent. Principle is never bound by precedent. That's kind of churchy talk for your past screw-ups never need to define your present success or your future success. And that's a powerful thing. It's a good news for us. A friend of mine says, my yesterday doesn't need to define my todays and tomorrows. It's the same way of setting it. Unless, of course, you don't let your past go. See, when we don't let our past go and we think that our screw-ups are bigger than God, then we're in trouble. When we think our past screw-ups are bigger than God's ability to give us new abundance, new love, new compassion, new forgiveness, then we get bogged down in just living a tiny life. But if we can begin to understand and embrace this notion that principle is never bound by precedent, we begin to soar. Now, I'm not suggesting that God or Allah or Elohim or the sacred grandmother tree or whatever name you give this essence of love, I'm not suggesting that this essence wipes away your slate. Your screw-ups, the past screw-ups, are actually very purposeful for you. They're purposeful for you if you allow them to inform your today and tomorrows, but not define your today and tomorrows in your life. We're all purposeful. In recovery, we say it this way: we do not wish to regret our past, nor wish to shut the door on it, because we know that there's juice there, there's information there, but it doesn't become who we are today or tomorrow in our life. See, we don't teach that principle erases precedent. We say that it's not bound up by it. It doesn't make it so that you can't move past it and through it in your life. Our spiritual work is to look with our past at compassion and begin to do what I call divine do-overs. And I subtitle this sermon that it's how to make this time better than last time and the time before that in our lives. The divine doer. So if you want to start over in a relationship, how do I make my present relationship that I'm going forward into and my future relationships better than my last relationships? Maybe you got let go from a job. How do I make my job, my new job that I'm going to, better than my last job? How do I make my parenting skills better than the parenting skills I had yesterday in my life? We do that by having divine do-overs. And with all divine do-overs, you need preparation. You need to raise your consciousness. You need to become more awake and aware. We had a young man here last night at the Saturday night service. And if you haven't seen a Saturday night service, check it out. We need to have some more people come and just check it out until we can build up that clientele, so it doesn't look kind of like, not so good. So come and check it out. Well, one of the things that he said last night, he taught me a new word, and you might know this word. I'm kind of older, mature. I'll be the person to say that, by the way, in the future. He introduced me to the word woke. We need to be woke. And when we begin to be woke, we take notice. And did you ever take notice that we tend to learn from our mistakes where it matters the least in our lives? You know, you play a board game and you make a mistake on that first time you play the board game and you think, the next time I play this game, I'm not making that mistake again. Or you put together kids' toys and you've got the screws and the nuts and the bolts all over the place, and you say, boy, the next time I put a toy together, I'm going to have all the nuts and the bolts and everything all organized. You don't make that mistake again, do you? You only make it one time. Or maybe you're just learning how to Twitter, and you're not used to Twitter, and all of a sudden you told the whole world, boy, last time was great. And you say, I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm not going to do that. Well, when that happens, those are the things that matter least. What we want to learn from is where our life matters the most. Learning from our mistakes where life matters most. In our money situations, in our relationship situations, with our kids, and our parenting, and in our job. When we make a mistake, you and I tend to ask the same question over and over and over again. And that question is this: what was I thinking? What was I thinking? Now, the most important word in that sentence, what was I thinking, is the word I. Because we're the common denominator. Everywhere we go, there we are. It's not about anybody else. Everybody else, it's just about where we are in our lives. Well, today I want to talk about 3 myths. Now, these are not earth-shattering myths. This doesn't take rocket science. In fact, when you hear these 3 myths, you're going to say, yeah, of course, I know that. But what I'm trying to get to by reminding you of these 3 myths is that we don't just know it up here, but we know it here. We have muscle memory. Did you know when you learn how to ride a bike and you ride it for a little while, your muscles will never forget how to ride that bike. You might be a little wobbly, but your muscles will return you to knowing how to ride. That's what I want with these 3 myths. I want them in muscle memory so that when you come upon a challenge in your life, you don't slip into these myths. They're not terrible things. They just slow us down from going forward on our spiritual journey. The first myth is called the experience myth. I'm wiser because I've had that experience. In light of everything I've gone through, I'm wiser now because I've gone through all that stuff. It's a mistake. It's a mistake. You are not wiser because you've had an experience. You're not wiser. You might be more tired because you had that experience. You're definitely older because you had that experience. You might be lonelier because you had that experience, but you're not necessarily wiser because you had that experience. It's important because we lull ourselves into believing that because we've had an experience, we're not going to repeat it in the future. But here's the thing. You don't even need to look at your own life. I guess I know that we don't like to. Look at your friends' lives. Come on, I know we judge our friends. I know we do. And we all have friends, and you think, what were they thinking? They've done it over and over and over. They repeated that mistake. They repeated it because they thought they were wiser. See, experience alone does not make you wiser. Evaluated experience can make you wiser. But we have to take the time to evaluate the experience, and we rarely do that. We need to take the time. I've had this experience. What did it mean? How did I get there? And ask the question, what was I thinking? But really listen for the answer. Because there is always an answer as to what it is that we were thinking. Evaluated experience can make us wiser. The second myth is called the I know better myth. I know better. Since I know better, I'm going to do better. It's an incorrect assumption that because we know better, we're going to do better. That because we know the difference between right and wrong, but know the difference between success and failure, that we're going to do better the next time. It's an incorrect assumption because a lot of us are on a loop and we just keep repeating and repeating. You know, remember when you were a kid and you'd go out the door and your mother or father would say, now be sure and do this, or don't do this while you're out there. And you say, I know all that. But then you get to the situation and it looks fun. Or it looks like you might be more popular if you do that. And so we go ahead and we do it. See, it doesn't necessarily mean that knowing better is doing better. In order to know better, we have to add an aspect of God called courage. That aspect of God called courage. The last time when someone asked you why you were in a bad relationship, here's the thing about relationships. A lot of our bad relationships are bad because we carried them over from our last relationship. And the chances are we're going to carry it over to the next relationship in our life. And then we end up saying things, what's wrong with the people I date? A couple things are wrong with the people you date. First of all, you picked them and your picker is broken. That's one thing. Or they picked you and you didn't have the courage to say, I'm going to take a pass. I don't want to be in that relationship. We haven't cultivated the strength yet to be able to know better and do better. The third myth is the time myth, and this is the toughest myth of all to be able to break. See, the thing is, what Aaron said today was so brilliant. You know, is there still time? Of course there's still time. But here's what happens with us. We think the clock is ticking. And we even have phrases for that. I'm not getting any younger. Clock is ticking. I better get on it. My siblings are doing well. What's happening with me? How come I'm not getting the opportunities that they're getting? And we think it's because time is wasting in our life. Maybe you're ready to jump back in and start dating in your life. And you say to yourself, I gotta get a date because time is ticking away. I'm not getting any younger. Here's the problem. Time is your friend. Time is your friend. I talked with a woman the other day. I ran into her outside of the church, and she's a mature woman like myself, and she said, do you know, and I knew that she was interested in getting a partner 3 years ago. I knew this. She said it happened. I never thought I would fall in love as deeply as I have fallen in love at this age. It doesn't matter what time it is. We've all got plenty of time. In fact, you know that therapists who are working with blended families will say that time is not your enemy, time is your friend, because you need time to put all of this together. Slow down on your journey as you're going. See, here's what happens. When we go through a challenge in our life, we get off balance. And when we get off balance, it's kind of like getting sick, kind of like getting the flu. You know, you have a temperature, and when you have a temperature, you slow down, you lay down, you take time to heal. But we don't often take time when we go through a challenging part of our life, and especially we metaphysicians run the risk of saying everything's good, move it on. We got to take the time to grieve, to be with our feelings, so that we can. You know, you've all experienced this where a friend has gone through something that's painful. Either they got dumped or they lost their job, and you call them on the phone, and you're kind of expecting a give and take conversation, but what ends up happening is you're just listening to them dump and talk and talk, and you call them the next week, talk and talk and talk, and kind of we get impatient with it. We want them to move on. Come on, time's a wasting. But we should be celebrating with them. We should give them the opportunity to just talk until they're done talking in our life. This idea that I gotta hurry, I gotta hurry, I gotta hurry, I gotta hurry. You gotta put it to bed. got to let it go in our life. You know, in the Bible, I always like to have some sort of scriptural reference. There are plenty of them in the Bible, of people who took time from the first time something happened, and they wanted to make it the next time different than the first time. They wanted a divine do-over, and they got it. You know, in the Torah, Moses had a great life, and then he kills somebody. He has a challenge, and he goes off, and we don't hear about him again for 40 years. See, he needed time between the first time and the do-over time in his life. David was set to be king, and Saul said, no, you can't be king. You're knocked off the kingdom. It took him 8 years to get back, to become the king. Saul of the Bible, you remember that he made a decision one day on a road to have a totally different life. And it took him, from the time he made that decision to have a totally different life, from that moment to the moment that he came back and started planting churches in the Mediterranean Rim, it took 14 years. Time is our friend. We can't give up. But here's the thing. There's a difference between giving up and rushing in. And if we can just take a little bit of time in our life. It's a myth that there's not enough of it. There's plenty of it. Let's take this message into prayer, knowing that there is a God, Allah, Elohim, the sacred grandmother tree, divine love, infinite intelligence, ultimate wisdom. All of that is not only in us, but it is around us and through us, the innermost God and the highest God are the same God, whatever we want to call that name. And they all promise the yes. They all promise the yes to whatever question we have. So we're careful about our statements. We're careful about our questions, knowing that the only word that can come back is yes. So the ball is in our court to make manifest that which we want. I give thanks for that. I release His word into the law. Together we say, and so